Hey, what's up? It's Josh. Decided to make a video because I just needed somebody to talk to. I made it to Mexico for a family reunion kind of thing. My boss bought me a ticket. Here I am. And family, that's like the theme, right? But holy smokes, is it ever challenging being around family for extended periods of time, for weeks on end. Normally, like I have a car, you go visit somebody, you can leave whenever you want. Here, you're here until your flight out of here. So it's challenging. As anybody with a family knows, it's a lot of different energies, people coming from different places, different places in their lives, into different stuff, and trying to find a balance between it all and get along. And yeah, it's certainly been a bit of a challenge here, but I think that I was talking with my cousin yesterday. It's almost like I think that's might be part of why families can be so challenging, is because we come here, I think, to this life to grow, to learn, and it's through those challenging opportunities that we find new ways of expressing ourselves and coming to terms with things. They say, there's a saying, it's if it's easy, it's not worth doing. And I'm not saying that applies to everything, but I mean, you can see, I can see the logic in it, where it's like, like say, learning how to play a musical instrument, or running down the beach. I ran, a good 10K yesterday, and it wasn't easy, especially in soft sand, but the result is fantastic. The workout that you give your body, and just the experience itself, and learning the techniques of running in the sand, because it's not like running on pavement. You have to dig your heels into the sand. You can't put the front part of your foot down, because the muscles in your legs, at least on the first day, aren't going to be strong enough to maintain stability and propel you forward. So you have to have techniques that help you to adapt to your environment, right? And especially running on angles, you need to compensate for, if you're running on a little angle, just that very slight angle can over time create pain, because you're out of alignment. Essentially, you're not running symmetrically, so it's important to compensate for that kind of stuff. I find that it's really easy when you're on a steeper slope, because you can see and feel very obviously, it's not the word, but obviously it's very evident that you need to compensate for the slope of the beach. But if it's slight, you can maintain running out of alignment for a significant portion of time, and before you know it, you're starting to have aches and pains, because you have to compensate, or one side is compensating for the other. So it's very important to be aware of the environment that you're looking to thrive in, and to stride in. Also, running on the flat in soft sand, it's you need to, sometimes you'll find grooves where people ride their ATVs and stuff through there, but it's if you run in that groove, because it's so narrow, it's not quite what your hips are. So then if you try to follow another path, it can throw you out too, because then you're bringing your legs into an unnatural position, not how they would normally fall if you weren't attempting to maintain somebody else's path, right? And so that's why it's important to blaze your own trail. You have to I don't know how else to say this without swearing, but like say like when you do rebar, and you have pliers, and like when you're doing something that requires effort, and you have to manipulate some sort of a medium, you can't allow that medium to get the best of you. You need to make it your I don't want to swear, right? But you have to make it your slave, right? You have to essentially not dominate, right? But it's like, as far as running down the beach, you need to take control. You need to understand that it's important that you're maintaining your own integrity and not allowing that thing to get the best of you, because it can if you allow it to. So yeah, I thought it was a sort of a spiritual experience. There's lessons everywhere in life, and especially just doing everyday life. I've found that it's lots of stuff to learn there. But I suppose some of that translates to what it's like to coexist, to cohabitate with family and stuff like that, because it can be challenging. And I know that the difficulties that you have with people. It's not the first time I fought with my sister, and I don't think it'll be the last too, right? So it's like important not to blow it out of proportion or hold grudges, take things personally, make it all about yourself. I mean, regardless of how you feel about the situation, or how you handled yourself, or how the other person handled themselves, I mean, it's always an opportunity to be a bigger person, to practice humility, to be an example, of maturity, of calmness, of relaxation, of understanding, whatever it takes to be a good example, and to not, if there is behavior going on that you don't agree with or understand, just not to feed it, right? Because it's very easy to allow your own ego to flare up and feel like you need to teach somebody else a lesson, or it's a phrase that I use frequently that helps me, is just that, like, I have nothing else that I need to prove to anybody else. I don't make, it's something I said to somebody who's just like, I don't want you to be happy. And this person said, what do you mean you don't want me to be happy? It's like, well, your happiness is none of my business. Whatever you're going through on your journey, I don't even wish the best for you. I mean, it's none of my business. It's nobody's business what anybody else is going through, right? I mean, I make a point of not meddling in other people's affairs, of not concerning myself with what other people are doing, not interfering with other people and their process. I mean, that is just a part of who I am and the way that I do things. And then for me, the challenge is to calm that energy down, and to not try to impose my own understanding on somebody else as the correct one, because it's very easy to do that. I mean, so yeah, a lot of learning opportunities. I mean, I was speaking with somebody the other day about, how to, techniques for raising children, for handling children, for teaching them a concept known as fairness. Because, some kids have this sense of entitlement where they think that they just should continue to receive all kinds of stuff, without actually really deserving it. And there is such a thing as deserving it. If you, I touched on this with my Christmas video. It's like if you behave in a way which is inconsiderate to others, if you don't, if you have bad behavior, it's important not to reinforce that by rewarding people and not kind of giving them proper opportunities to reflect on the consequences of how we treat each other, how we speak to each other, our behavior in general. So, and the concept that we're talking about was what is fair. It's like, so if one person receives something, like say if you got 3 kids, if you give one kid something, does everybody else need something? I'd say it depends on what it is. If you're going for ice creams, it probably makes sense. I mean, or something along those lines. But not everything. I mean, there has to, I think it's equally important to practice a degree or an amount of discernment. And it's like, just because somebody has something doesn't mean that you should necessarily have it as well, because then that becomes like a sense of entitlement, right? And that can certainly be a problem when people get older, because there's like a thing called keeping up with the Joneses, where it's like you look at others as to a reference point of what you think that you yourself should have. It's like, well, that person has this, therefore I should have this. And it's just like, there's the way that it's explained. There's a really good meme, and it's essentially the difference between equality and equity. Equality is like we all have exactly the same thing. Equity is that we have what we need, and the meme is like a picture of a person, or there's a fence and people are trying to see over the fence, and so there's a tall person, a shorter person, and a shorter person, and everybody has different needs, and it's about having what you need, not about having what other people have. And so a person who's tall doesn't need, say, something to stand on in the same way that somebody who's short does, right? Because it's just, you don't need, everything doesn't have to be equal in that way. And it's a challenging concept for some, for children to wrap their minds around. That's why I think that it's important to be reinforced starting from a very early age, and not by being told so, but by being shown by example, because that is how you teach, not with words. They're watching behaviors, and especially if you say one thing and do another, then you're reinforcing hypocritical behavior, right? And that is terrible, as you know what that word means, right? So that was the question. It's like, well, so how do you go about teaching children a concept that is fairly complex, that it even baffles certain adults? And it took a moment for me to receive the answer to that, and it was simple. It is just in everyday things that happen, in the happenings of every single day. There, I see, as an observer, when I see, say, certain people and families that I'm around, a lot of missed opportunities where instead of where children get like punished, they get threatened, they get bribed, they get manipulated into certain behaviors, whether it's emotionally or through mentally, psychologically, manipulated. And it's like but at the same time, it's like there's these opportunities in every moment to teach something, to reinforce an understanding which can lead to the child choosing to make their own, to come to their own, to come to exhibiting proper behavior on their own without being told, where they put two and two together themselves. But of course, it has to also be reinforced by the positive example, because if somebody's telling you to do something whilst they're simultaneously doing what is essentially the opposite, then it creates confusion for a person, and it's hard to get on board with something like that, right? When you have a poor example for anything. So, I mean, I'm sure by what I'm saying, you can kind of tell some of what I've been dealing with. I mean, I'm finding it challenging to be in an environment where there's things going on that I basically have to bite my tongue about everything that's going on, and then I have to sugarcoat stuff so to not step on toes. And it's like, because we're here in Mexico, and it's like, let's have a good time, and I'm not here to preach, I'm not here to teach, I'm here to enjoy myself with my other family members. There's this saying, I was talking with my cousin last night. It's like, oh, well, you can change that at any time, just like mentally, you can choose to look at it in a different way. And I said, yeah, there's some truth to that. But also there's a quote that I like by Jiddu Krishnamurti, and it's that it is no measure of good health to be well adjusted to an environment that you don't appreciate, that you are finding to be unhealthy for your particular energetic makeup. And so then, it's tricky, do I have the answer for how to deal with this? No. Right now, it's just to spend a whole lot more time by myself. I have books that I can read. I mean, I have a beach that I can run on. I can, take the time that I need. I haven't been meditating and doing yoga as much as I need to because of, you get caught up in other things, family, just the experience, getting acclimatized to the heat and the humidity. But they say in Spanish, poco a poco, little by little, right? And that's the big thing about coming down here too, is it's a different pace of life. I mean, it was really one of my intentions to come down here and leave some of the energy that I have surrounding me in Canada and just come here and relax, just slow down a bit instead of trying to do so much stuff, tick things off the list, make things happen, make moves. I'm going through a learning experience. And I just wanted to share that. It really is a lifeline, having this medium, this ability to share in this way. Because, without it, I don't know what I would do. Options are journaling, meditation is just a completely different practice. I mean, I don't know. I think it's important that, as a social being, that we are able to express ourselves, to say the things that we need to say in a safe space where we feel comfortable just actually speaking, and that is something that I feel that I'm really challenged with in the environment that I'm in, with the people that I'm involved with, that it's like I don't feel comfortable opening up about how I truly feel, because it's like people then start offering up their opinions and trying to fix it. And there's certain people, a lot of people that I know who make excuses. It's like you say something, you're like, oh yeah, this, and they make excuses for themselves, they make excuses for this, they make excuses for everything and everyone. And it's like, I don't know, that's just not my energy. Be like, oh, that person could try harder. Yeah, well, they're doing their best. And it's like, okay, and it that dovetails into this thing too, where it's like, so there's people who make excuses for everything and everyone. And it's funny, some people I pointed this out to, and they've recognized it, and they laugh at it, and then they start catching themselves. It's like, oh my God, I do that. That's funny, I will certainly think about that, and it's good to be aware of it. So if it's a behavior that you don't want to continue, you can do something about it. Yeah, but then there's this other thing, which is like undermining, which I'm certainly being challenged with as well, where it's like sometimes you be like, hey, like I'm frustrated, I'm handling this situation that I'm in as best as I can, but I'm finding it challenging. And then people say, yeah, well, or they say, be like, what's the best example? I'm trying to say this clearly. You say, yeah, I don't like this taco that I'm eating, and then they'd be like, oh, well, it's better than nothing. It's like, hey, you don't need to undermine my experience. Why do you need to, when I say that this is an experience I'm having, turn it around and tell me, it's essentially kind of like invalidating what you say. It's just like, it's frustrating for myself. I mean, but once again, it's sure all these little things are an opportunity to not let it get under your skin, to not, I don't know, not let things bother you, right? I mean, there are certainly ways of dealing with everything that kind of comes up, right? But yeah, I don't know what the answer. I although I would guess it has something to do with the middle way. I mean, just as important as it is to find your own inner peace, to find a way to handle the situations that life presents you with in the most mature and respectable manner, where you're really taking everybody and everything and everybody into account simultaneously, at least to the best of your ability. But at the same time, sometimes it is important to speak your truth, to speak up, to have healthy boundaries, to say, hey, this doesn't work for me. What's going on? You have to speak up. And sometimes that's confrontation. It's confrontational, and it's like, I don't like it. I have become a pacifist. I don't care to explain things to other people. I don't need others to understand me or my perspective, my opinion. It's inconsequential to me. Well, like I said, I have nothing that I need to prove to anybody else, unless my ego flares up, which is very easy for it to happen. I mean, it's part of the human condition, it seems, is overcoming this thing, which is your ego. But yeah, and so I suppose that would be it. It's just that the middle ground is to find some place in between there. We're finding that inner peace where when something does come up, then I suppose you could express yourself calmly and without coming from a place of defensiveness, because that is where the issues come from, because you start defending because you feel others are attacking. I mean, somebody has to neutralize that. If you get two people going tete-a-tete, head-to-head, it's like you start butting heads. You know, how is it? The ego is a funny thing. It's like it wants to be right. It wants others to agree with it, for it to be seen, for it to be heard. And so, but if you can be aware of this and not get caught up, then you can help to not let a conversation go there. You can be that element of maturity, that you know, coming from that place of peace where it's just like, yeah, where you can walk away from a conversation without feeling like you need to tell somebody off or tell them what to do or what to think, how to behave, or try to explain to them what the correct behavior is, what's righteous, you know, what they should be doing, how they should be acting more like you. Right? I mean, yeah. So, challenges. But yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much the gist of what I wanted to say. There is more to it. There was something on the tip of my tongue a second ago, but rather just let it go. I mean, that's a big part of this whole thing too. Like, whatever it is that you're dealing with, is just letting it go. It's funny, there's this one of the kids was playing, and some other kids picked up their Lego, right? And they changed it, and then they started crying, right? It's like, it's literally called let go. It's almost called let go. Like, just let go of it, you know? Sometimes things happen, and you gotta just let go. That's this whole thing about attachment, right? And then surrender and letting go. And yeah, it's a part of finding that peace and happiness for what it's worth. Right? I will leave it with that. I'll give you one last little view of the beautiful ocean side here. Bon voyage. Yeah. There's a lot to be grateful for.